What happens when a policy meant to help actually hurts? What happens when diversity is just a numbers game? What happens when fairness is replaced with quotas?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion, 3 words that should represent fairness and opportunity. But what if I told you that in government institutions across the world, these programs often create more problems than they solve? Instead of ensuring equal opportunity, some DEI policies enforce equal outcomes, even if it means ignoring qualifications, experience, and merit. And when that happens, public trust crumbles, workplaces become divided, and resentment grows. Today, we're diving deep into the flaws, the failures, and the fixes for government DEI programs. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at DEI the same way again.
DEI programs were supposed to bring fairness. The idea was simple: make sure government institutions reflect the people they serve. Sounds good, right? Representation. So communities could see themselves in government. Equity and opportunities. To break down barriers to fair hiring and promotion. Cultural competence. To train employees in bias awareness and inclusivity. But then something went wrong. So where did DEI go off the rails? Well, let's start with the biggest problems. I don't think people understand the true promise of DEI in government. DEI programs were supposed to bring fairness. The idea was simple: make sure government institutions reflect the people they serve. Sounds good, right? Representation. So communities could see themselves in government. Equity and opportunities. To break down barriers to fair hiring and promotion. Cultural competence. To train employees in bias awareness and inclusivity. But then, the effectiveness of DEI programs depends on their implementation. When people feel included, they are more likely to contribute their talents and perspectives. This leads to better decision-making and a stronger democracy. So where did DEI go off the rails? DEI initiatives typically focus on 3 key objectives: representation, equity, and cultural competence. Representation means ensuring that the government workforce reflects the demographic makeup of society. This includes race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and disability. Equity goes beyond representation. It focuses on creating fair opportunities for everyone to succeed. Cultural competence is the ability to understand and interact effectively with people from different cultures. This requires awareness of one's own biases and assumptions. It also involves actively seeking out and valuing different perspectives. By promoting cultural competence, DEI programs help to create a more inclusive and welcoming workplace for everyone. While DEI programs hold great promise, their effectiveness hinges on genuine commitment and thoughtful implementation. When DEI goes wrong: gender quotas in the European Union. One example of well-intentioned but potentially problematic DEI measures is the use of gender quotas in hiring and promotion. While quotas can increase female representation in the short term, they can also lead to unintended consequences. In some cases, quotas have been implemented without addressing the underlying systemic barriers that prevent women from advancing in their careers. This can lead to resentment and accusations of reverse discrimination. Critics argue that prioritizing gender over merit undermines fairness and can lead to the appointment of less qualified individuals. This can ultimately harm the very groups these policies aim to help. Best practices for meaningful DEI implementation. To avoid tokenism and ensure that DEI programs achieve meaningful change, organizations should adopt a holistic approach that addresses systemic barriers. This includes moving beyond numerical representation. While representation is important, it should not be the sole focus. DEI efforts must go beyond simply filling quotas and address the underlying systems and structures that perpetuate inequities. Ensuring accountability is also crucial. Organizations should establish clear metrics and benchmarks for measuring the effectiveness of their DEI programs. Regular assessments and evaluations are crucial to identify what is working and what needs improvement. Creating inclusive cultures is paramount. This involves promoting open dialogue, providing diversity training, and ensuring that everyone feels valued and respected. By focusing on these best practices, organizations can create DEI programs that are not just symbolic gestures, but rather catalysts for lasting and meaningful change. Just because a company says they're inclusive doesn't mean they are. Many government agencies slap DEI on their policies just to look good. They run workshops, make fancy mission statements, but behind the scenes, nothing really changes.
We had DEI meetings every month, but leadership didn't actually care about making a difference. It was all for PR.
Then there's tokenism, where underrepresented groups are brought in just for optics. You got the job, but not the influence. People are hired to meet diversity quotas, but they're not given real leadership opportunities. They're stuck in low-impact roles while the real decisions are made behind closed doors.
I was the only woman of color on my team. They loved to show me off, but when I spoke up, no one listened.
That's not inclusion. That's exploitation. Now, this one is controversial, but we need to talk about it. What happens when diversity quotas override qualifications? This means someone can lose out on a job just because they don't fit the quota.
I was told I was the best candidate, but they had to hire a woman instead. What happened to fairness?
And here's the thing. No one is saying we shouldn't support women in leadership, but forcing gender-based hiring instead of building skills and opportunities, that's not progress. That's just another form of discrimination.
So what happens when people see these problems? They push back, hard. The last United States election saw voters rejecting DEI overreach in government hiring.
People don't want identity-based hiring. They want fair, qualified leadership. Here's how we make DEI work, without the backlash, the quotas, or the resentment. First, merit should come first. DEI should create equal opportunities, not guarantee equal outcomes. Second, education over entitlement. Instead of forcing hiring quotas, invest in training and leadership development for underrepresented groups. Third, real inclusion, not tokenism. Give marginalized employees real power, not just visibility. And finally, independent oversight. Government DEI programs should be transparent and measurable. When DEI is done right, it makes government stronger. But when it's done wrong, it destroys trust. So the next time you hear about a new DEI policy, ask yourself, is it real inclusion or just a numbers game? Because true diversity isn't about checking boxes. It's about building something better. Join the conversation. Let's demand better DEI policies, ones that actually work. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content.